Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Peace
Uh,
out.
Peace to the universe. We are live tonight on Zoom and YouTube, um, which is just an experiment, and hopefully it goes well. Uh, Welcome back to the program, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, bro.
This is a podcast on Black mental health and race. Um, I put in the chat for YouTube such conversation, conversations necessary and good for American society. Uh, just turned off my AC. We had a couple of weeks hiatus. Um, I thought that it was time to take a break and start a new season. So tonight will be the first episode of a new season, and hopefully, through all of the topics that we discussed tonight, in terms of current events, we can see whether that question of the necessity of such a conversation is apropos, or should we end this type of discussion and maybe start another one, or just go back into our homes.
Absolutely. Sounds good, bro.
Yes, sir. Um, how was your time off and your birthday? Were you able to get all of the things accomplished that you wanted to?
Yeah, bro. It's been quite an eventful last couple of weeks. Some of them intentional, some of them not intentional. Um, so yeah, the birthday was definitely a blessing. Just to have another one.
Yes, sir.
I had a great time at the conclave with my fraternity brothers. So that
Cool.
was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other couple of weeks have just been uh, hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's been not an intentional high. Word is stuck in my brain. Hiatus. Um,
Yes, sir. Um, my time has been uneventful. I didn't get arrested or shot, but I damn near came close to some black violence, black on black violence. I was hanging out with my old buddies from my childhood, and we were sitting out there in Brooklyn at the Bed-Stuy Restoration, and it was kind of late, and about like 9 o'clock, the restoration is starting to see all of these young guys, young black guys, and they are pretty rambunctious, jumping over things and coming into the park, like that teen spirit of black youth, and
I
we
mean,
see.
like, you mean like when you used to have me up at like 5 o'clock in the morning at Boys and Girls High School climbing the fences and shit?
Unfortunately, none of that was available that night. The fuckery of being black and young was the only game in town that night. So what had happened was, we sitting there, three old black men having a conversation, drinking some wine, and you start to hear these young boys get louder and louder and getting closer and closer. So my other two homies, they still talking like nothing is wrong, but I'm starting to sense that the excitement that they're having is because they have three old targets, which they can make an example of to prove how tough they are. I guess. So I'm observing the young boys just running back and forth, and as they run back and forth in and out of the Restoration Park, um, the their crowd keeps getting bigger and louder, and as these new um, people, young boys, enter the park, they look at us as they come in, and then they go past, and then they come back, and then they go get more people. So it started out with about 5 to 7 of them initially, and then it went on to about 35 to 50 of them by the time we were still talking. So strategically, I know not to say anything, just be observant. Um, just from my little knowledge of military science. So I'm watching, observing them. My two other homeboys, then they're not paying them any mind, but I see them scheming. But I didn't want to alert them, and it's just my paranoia. So I just let this thing continue on and on. So eventually we got up, thankfully, and walked out of the park onto the street, and it was no incident. But I was saying in my mind, although I never mentioned it to them, that this could have turned out ugly real fast because we're not the type of people to run or be victimized by anybody. That's the way we grew up. And when you have two clashing mentalities like that, um, something could go wrong very quickly. And we could have been hurt, or somebody's son could not have come home that night. Um, I say that to say that in the same area of Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, we had an incident um, at the McDonald's on Tompkins and Fulton Street, on Troop and Fulton Street, where an incident occurred that was actually became so famous that it was broadcast on the news, where a lady went into a McDonald's and she got cold fries and began to have an argument with a one of the young cashiers at McDonald's. Eventually, that cashier, um, the lady that got the cold fries, thought she was so disrespected that she called her son to come and handle the situation. And so the young son got into an argument with the young cashier, and eventually the altercation was taken outside of the McDonald's, and that cashier was shot, fatally shot, and he would die maybe 2 to 3 days later. I think the next morning they figured out that the person that the cashier at McDonald's that was shot over cold fries was not going to make it, and told his family that their son unfortunately was deceased. I say all of that. Um, I, I know we just gave the greetings to your son, and it's just so incidental how life can be here one minute and gone the next. And that is the mentality that we face in the Black community, notwithstanding what we go through on a racial basis, but just among ourselves, that mentality of being quick to violence can erupt anywhere at any age. And life is so precious. So forgive me for the long opening, brother, but I thought we'd start the conversation that way and then get into some current events. You're listening to Black Mental Health and Race. I am your host, MF Doug AF, and my co host is Dr. Moore. Welcome back to the podcast, brother.
Peace to the God.
Peace to the universe.
So let me just kind of revisit what you just told me. Now, when you were in the park, at what time was this? What time of day or night was this?
It started in the afternoon. We usually get together maybe like between 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, late afternoon, going towards the evening.
Okay.
And that night, we went to the liquor store and got some wine. It was hot, so we had some wine and some ice, and it was drinking the wine, just enjoying each other's conversation. Um, but we usually don't stay in that park that late. But that night, while we weren't paying attention, we saw this crowd start to grow. But I think I'm the only one that looked at it as a dangerous situation. But sure enough, the next day, the following day, was the incident that happened with the young boy shooting the young cashier in McDonald's. The same night our incident occurred, the next morning uh, was when the McDonald's incident happened.
Yeah, so I see these two different situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I know for sure is that can't remember who I was having this conversation with. I was having a conversation with someone, and I was saying, I was talking about my previous life and my life now, and how some people say, like I've changed and things like that. And you and I've had that conversation also. But
yes, sir.
I've said that there are things or places with the person I was having a conversation with is I know better now than to go there because I know what the potential could bring. And I know that I may go there with one intention, but I can't control the intentions of someone else.
Exactly.
And so when I understand that that's the case, but that's a level of maturity, right? So I'm in a place in my life where, I have to think about the whole situation, not just where my mindset is. Because I could go to the place and I'm just going to chill and relax. Mm-hmm. But what I can't control is other people and what their intentions are.
Right.
So what I have to know ahead of time is when I start, if I go someplace and I feel like the energy isn't right or the vibe isn't right, I'm immediately going to leave.
That
Not
is
necessarily
correct.
because I'm afraid.
Right.
But because, not necessarily because I'm afraid, but to make sure that at the end of the night I'm gonna be able to go home.
Exactly.
to make sure that I take care of my family, myself, and my lifestyle. Secondly, this other incident that you just told me about, I see it's completely different. It sounds like this woman was very unstable mentally. And for her to allow cold French fries to escalate to that degree, where she would then further add to her mental dysfunction by calling her son to handle a situation such as that. It speaks volumes to how horrible that situation was. The fact that, one, that she responded that way to cold fries. The two, that she would have a son that she could call that would participate in that dysfunction. But not only participate in that dysfunction, but for someone to lose their life as a result of that. None of that makes sense. And I'm not going to make that a black thing or a white thing or colored thing. What I am going to make it, though, is a psychological thing, because it speaks volumes to the psychological dysfunction in that whole situation.
Amen. Hopefully we can get into that more as the conversation progresses. What do you think? The funny thing about the not that it was funny, but the odd thing or strange thing about me looking up the new incident where cold fries has gotten somebody either killed or maimed by a customer. So there's the aspect where it's not just about black and white, but there seems to be this mentality in American society where you can now retaliate against bad customer service, and you have a right to respond irrationally and do something because you didn't get the right service for your food. There were at least 3 or 4 other incidents that just currently happened while this shooting happened, about people getting into altercations or the police having to be called for cold fries. I think 3 of them were involved black people, and one involved one of those white Karens who feel entitled that they get everything that they deserve, or they're going to call the police.
Well, I think you can thank your former president for creating the atmosphere and the environment for that. You had someone who was the leader of the free world, who would call football players SOB, son of a bitches, right? Who would talk about other countries and call them shithole countries, right? Would talk about people being murderers and rapists. And this was repeatedly. And so it really created the stage for people who normally, prior to that, would have kept those sentiments to themselves or thought that that was distasteful to do. But when you have the leader of the free world talking to the world the way that he talked to them, dismissing other news platforms because they disagree with them, calling them dumb, calling them stupid, making fun of handicapped people. See, that environment was created and made popular and made decent by the leader of the free world. And when I say the leader of the free world, you have half of this country that voted for this guy, and half of this country that will continue to vote for this guy. There's a guy who was a TV celebrity, that they voted in to be the president of the United States. So what I'm saying is, so half of this country is very ignorant, in my opinion. And now that he's made it popular to be ignorant, they feel that people who normally didn't want to be seen as ignorant now feel like they have a place to be ignorant, and it's okay, and they embrace and step into their ignorance.
Indeed. You are listening to Black Mental Health and Race. We've just finished our first 30-minute segment. We're going to take a break and come back, but we usually don't know the nature of the subjects that we're going to talk about on this podcast, but we just let the energy flow. Um, Hopefully, the YouTube audience will now have some type of recording to give them a familiarity with the discussions that take place on the iTunes podcast. You can locate us on iTunes by the hashtag BMHR, which is Black Mental Health and Race. Let us know.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
No, I just want to say before we close out for a break, and just talking about Trump and Trump popularizing the ignorance, of people feeling validated to be more ignorant. There's also a guy who is a major conspiracy theorist. You know his name?
Alex Jones.
Who's been in the news? Alex Jones. Who's been in the news? Who was also famous for saying very ignorant stuff, saying how the school shootings were not real. These people really didn't die. So it just speaks volume to what you're to the conversation that we're having, and the ignorance of people in this country. To be able to not only think but now act on those type of things. I mean, we're living in a day and time where you having people drive from South Carolina. Someone told them that Hillary Clinton was running a sex operation out of a pizza joint. Here in DC. So it's just this foolishness. I mean, you have people marching in Virginia, right? With tiki torches and khaki pants saying the Jews will not replace us.
A lot of that replacement theory is going on.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, just in terms of what and that's why I said I really didn't want to make it about race, because that level of ignorance is superseding, black people, because white people had an all-time high in terms of ignorance and entitlement.
Yes, sir. Indeed.
So, but anyway, I just wanted to say that before we close out.
Yes, sir. We're gonna take a break. If you want to join this type of conversation, or as I left in the poll on YouTube, is this type of conversation necessary in American society? You can just take the poll, yes or no, on the YouTube channel platform. It's DFNUNIVERSE, all one word. On YouTube, that's the YouTube channel. We're trying to broaden our horizons or find some other conversations, depending on how these conversations are. You are listening to Black Mental Health and Race, and we'll be right back after these messages. Peace to the universe.
Peace to God.
All right, hold on one second, brother.